welcome back to our channel, where we gather to discuss the ever-evolving, deeply emotional, and always thrilling world of Port Charles. Today is a beautiful day to dive into the latest twists and turns that our favorite daytime drama has delivered. The landscape of General Hospital has been nothing short of breathtaking lately, filled with high-stakes danger, profound family loyalty, and the kind of suspense that keeps us all on the edge of our seats. At the very heart of this current storm is a storyline that has completely captured my attention and my heart. The terrifying ordeal surrounding Britt Westbourne, young Rocco Falconeri, and the sinister forces of Jen Sidwell and Ross Cullum. It is a narrative rich with peril, and the latest developments have given us so much to unpack, analyze, and ponder as we watch these beloved characters navigate an impossible situation. For weeks now, we have watched with bated breath as Britt Westbourne has been forced into a desperate life on the run. Britt has always been a character of immense complexity, a woman who has fought hard to overcome her past and forge a meaningful life in Port Charles. Seeing her stripped of her comfort, her medical career, and her safety has been profoundly moving. But what truly elevates this storyline is her fierce, unyielding protection of young Rocco Falconeri. Britt is channeling the very best parts of her mother, Liesl Obrecht, displaying that formidable, lioness-like maternal instinct that will stop at nothing to shield a child from harm. The physical and psychological exhaustion of evading capture must be taking a monumental toll on her. Every shadow must look like an enemy, and every sound must feel like a threat. It is in this atmosphere of sheer paranoia and exhaustion that a sudden glimmer of hope is presented to her. Though, as we seasoned viewers know, hope in Port Charles is rarely uncomplicated. The arrival of Lucas Jones and Joe Fitzpatrick at Britt's hidden sanctuary brings a fascinating shift in dynamics. Lucas and Joe come bearing what they desperately want Britt to believe is wonderful news. They inform her that the sinister Jen Sidwell has vanished, seemingly driven underground, and is now being actively hunted by the Port Charles Police Department. On the surface, this sounds like the answer to Britt's prayers. The idea that one of her primary tormentors is on the run rather than hunting her should logically provide a massive wave of relief. Imagine the heavy sigh escaping Britt's lips, the momentary relaxation of her defensive posture. For a fleeting second, she might actually believe that the nightmare is nearing its end, that she and Rocco can finally step out of the darkness and return to the lives they were so violently torn away from. However, as a viewer who watches these characters closely, I cannot help but feel a deep sense of dread creeping in beneath this supposed good news. Let us take a moment to deeply consider Lucas Jones and his current state of mind. Lucas has historically been the moral center of his family, a good-hearted man who usually avoids the darker, more violent elements of his complicated family tree. Yet, recently, we have seen Lucas push to his absolute limits. He has been engaging in incredibly dangerous espionage, sneaking around Windermere, breaking into safes, and directly challenging lethal men to protect the people he loves. This kind of adrenaline-fueled, high-stakes behavior changes a person. I believe Lucas is acting out of a profound, desperate need to be the hero to fix a situation that is rapidly spiraling out of control. When he brings this news to Britt, his intentions are undoubtedly pure. He wants to save her. He wants to end this, but his desperation may be severely clouding his judgment, making him blind to the intricate traps that men like Sidwell and Cullum lay for the righteous. And then we have Joe Fitzpatrick. This is where my alarm bells start ringing at a deafening volume. Joe is a relatively new face at the PCPD, and while he presents himself as a dedicated officer of the law, the underlying tension in his scenes suggests something far more insidious. We know that Joe is not the straightforward, honest cop he pretends to be. There are dark secrets lurking behind his badge, and the strong implication that he is actually a dirty cop, perhaps even an informant for Jen Sidwell himself, makes his involvement in this rescue mission terrifying. Why is Joe so eager to accompany Lucas? Is he genuinely trying to help the police catch a fugitive, or is he carefully managing the situation on behalf of his true employer? My personal opinion is that Joe is playing a highly calculated double game. By embedding himself with Lucas, he gains direct access to Britt's location and her state of mind. Lucas, in his earnest desire to help, has inadvertently brought a wolf directly to the sheep's hidden door. The narrative that Britt is suddenly safe because the PCPD is hunting Sidwell is frankly an illusion that I hope Britt is smart enough to see through. The Port Charles Police Department, despite their best efforts and the dedication of officers like Chase and Dante, has a notoriously difficult time containing international threats of this magnitude. Jen Sidwell is not a common street criminal. He is a mastermind with vast resources, deep connections, and an uncanny ability to manipulate the system. If Sidwell has disappeared, it is not because he is cowering in fear of the local police. It is because he has chosen to go to ground, to regroup, and to plan his next devastating move. Britt's safety cannot be guaranteed by a police manhunt, especially not when the very forces hunting Sidwell might be compromised from within by individuals like Joe Fitzpatrick. I feel a strong protective urge toward Britt as a viewer, silently pleading with her through the screen not to let her guard down for even a fraction of a second. Furthermore, the focus on Sidwell's disappearance dangerously ignores the other, perhaps more immediate, half of the threat. Ross Cullum. Cullum is a hardened operative turned rogue criminal, a man who has already demonstrated his profound ruthlessness by violently ambushing and abducting Liesl Obrecht. Cullum's motivations are chillingly clear and deeply personal. He requires Britt's brilliant scientific mind to complete the Cold Fusion Project, a project that promises immense power and wealth. But beyond the science, Cullum harbors a dark, vindictive desire for revenge, and his target is innocent little Rocco. The idea that Britt could ever be safe while Cullum is still breathing and operating in Port Charles is absolutely absurd. Cullum does not care about the PCPD's manhunt for Sidwell. In fact, Sidwell being distracted or out of the picture might just give Cullum the unchecked freedom he needs to strike with overwhelming force. This brings us to a fascinating and highly volatile element of the current storyline, the growing tension and fracture between Jen Sidwell and Ross Cullum. Historically, in General Hospital, when two powerful villains align, the entire town suffers. But when those villains begin to turn on each other, the collateral damage can be even more catastrophic. Sidwell and Cullum are both alpha predators, men who demand absolute control. It was only a matter of time before their egos and their ultimate goals clashed. This internal war between them does not make Britt safer. It makes her the ultimate prize in a deadly tug-of-war. If Cullum feels that Sidwell is losing his grip, he will accelerate his own plans. He will become more aggressive, more desperate, and more willing to cross any line to secure Britt and Rocco before Sidwell can reassert his dominance. Britt is caught squarely in the crossfire of this villainous civil war, and the ground beneath her is shifting dangerously. It is within this incredibly fragile and dangerous context that Lucas and Joe present their ultimate shocking proposal. They want to use Britt as bait to lure Jen Sidwell out of hiding. When I first processed this development, I was genuinely appalled. The sheer audacity of asking a woman who has been hunted, traumatized, and forced to abandon her entire life to willingly step back into the crosshairs is staggering. Lucas, driven by his desperate need to end the overarching threat to his family, seems to be rationalizing this immense risk. He likely believes that with Joe and the PCPD backing them up, they can control the variables and snap the trap shut on Sidwell the moment he reveals himself. Let us break down the glaring tactical flaws in this bait strategy from a logical perspective. First and foremost, if my suspicions about Joe Fitzpatrick are correct, this plan is doomed before it even begins. If Joe is feeding information to Sidwell, then Sidwell will know exactly what the trap is, where it is set, and how to turn it to his advantage. Britt would not be bait. She would be a sacrificial lamb delivered directly to the slaughter. Joe could easily orchestrate a scenario where the police backup is delayed, misdirected, or neutralized, leaving Britt entirely at Sidwell's mercy. I find it deeply frustrating that Lucas, who is usually so perceptive, cannot see the potential for betrayal right beside him. Secondly, the plan completely underestimates the wild card that is Ross Cullum. Let us assume for a moment that the trap for Sidwell actually works perfectly. What happens then? Britt is out in the open, exposed, and vulnerable. Cullum, who has vast resources and surveillance capabilities at his disposal, will undoubtedly be watching. The moment Britt surfaces to play bait for Sidwell, she simultaneously signals her location to Cullum. Cullum does not need to play by the rules of a police sting operation. He can strike with overwhelming lethal force, snatching Britt and Rocco in the chaos of the police attempting to apprehend Sidwell. Using Britt as bait does not just lure one monster, it rings the dinner bell for both of them. From a character standpoint, I am intensely curious to see how Britt will react to this proposal. Britt is no stranger to danger, and she possesses a sharp, analytical mind. I believe she will immediately see the holes in Lucas and Joe's plan. She will recognize the profound danger of stepping out of the shadows. Yet Britt is also a woman who is deeply tired of running. The psychological toll of constantly looking over her shoulder is immense. There might be a part of her that is tempted to agree, simply to force a confrontation and end the agonizing suspense one way or another. But then she will look at Rocco. Rocco is her anchor, her primary responsibility. Can she justify risking her own life, knowing that if she falls, Rocco is left completely defenseless against Cullum's vengeance? We must not forget the absolute vulnerability of Rocco in all of this. He is just a child, swept up in a terrifying world of international espionage, mad science, and mob vendettas. If Britt agrees to be the bait, where does Rocco go? Who protects him while Britt is standing in the line of fire? Even the safest safe house is only as secure as the people guarding it. If Cullum discovers Rocco's location while Britt is distracted by the Sidwell operation, the tragedy would be absolute. The thought of Cullum getting his hands on that boy for the sake of a twisted revenge plot is stomach-turning. I hope with all my heart that Britt stands her ground, looks Lucas in the eye, and refuses to gamble with her life and Rocco's safety on such a flimsy, compromised plan. As we look ahead to the coming episodes, the tension is absolutely palpable. General Hospital has masterfully woven a web of deceit, danger, and emotional desperation. The dynamic between Britt, Lucas, and the highly suspicious Joe Fitzpatrick is a powder keg waiting for a spark. Will Britt's sharp instincts save her from this misguided trap? Will Lucas realize the snake he has invited into his inner circle before it is too late? And how will the looming, violent shadow of Ross Cullum disrupt whatever fragile plans are made? I am thoroughly invested in every second of this unfolding drama. The writing is sharp, the stakes are unimaginably high, and the performances are sure to be stellar. I cannot wait to see how these brave characters navigate the treacherous waters ahead, and I will certainly be right here, ready to share my thoughts and feelings with all of you as the story continues to unravel.